All right, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're doing something a little bit different. As you can see, we're doing a tier ranking video. Now, I've done one of these before. I did at the end of last year, and ever since I felt like, you know what, I need to be doing these again. I need to start getting them out there. I got a lot to say about a lot of different things, and I'm sure you guys are totally looking forward to hearing all my wonderful opinions. But since Black Ops 7 is right around the corner and everybody's just so unbelievably hyped for that game, I thought, you know what, why not do a Call of Duty tier list? And as you can see, we've got pretty much every game that there is for the most part. Some of these I've not played, so I do have a didn't play category, and I'll throw them in there. But as far as our tiers, we have peak, which pretty self-explanatory, best of the best. We have great games right there, but not quite the best. Good, meh, and then trash. Yeah, I think this should be fun. And I'm going to try to say as much as I can without having this video be ridiculously long, but it's probably still going to end up being pretty long because, well, we got a lot of games to get through. But without wasting much time, we're going to go ahead and start with Call of Duty 1. Didn't play it. Sorry, never knew you. Next game, Call of Duty 2. Now, this is the first Call of Duty I ever played. I didn't play it a ton because I was a little kid back in the day. Not really a whole lot to say about this game, but I did play the campaign a decent bit. You know, I enjoyed the setting, the classic vibe of it. I also did play a couple matches of multiplayer back in the day, but I'll be honest, I barely played it. However, I did boot it up recently and actually managed to find a match with 2 other people. It was pretty funny playing Call of Duty 2 multiplayer in 2025, but overall, I think Call of Duty 2 deserves to be in the good category. It's old, obviously, so it's not really going to be as great as a lot of these other games, but you can't really, you know, trash the game or anything. For its time, it was definitely great. Call of Duty 3, I did not play that one, so that's going to go into the didn't play category. Also, before we move forward, I do want to mention the games closest to the left side of a tier are going to be the ones that are the best of that tier. And then the ones to the furthest right side of the tier, those will be the worst of that tier. So next up, this is where the tier ranking actually begins, right? This is where the fun begins. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw that in great because for me, this is a great game. The campaign is in my top 3 of all time. Absolutely love it. Actually, it's in my top 2 of all time. You know, I love those characters. I love the story. I love the missions. Campaign was just phenomenal. I played it to death. And of course, who could forget the Mile High Club at the end? Still one of the hardest campaign missions that there is, especially on Veteran. But absolutely love that game's campaign. And the remaster was really great to play through again on Veteran whenever that came out. As far as multiplayer, obviously that is the main appeal of this game. That is where the Call of Duty franchise really came into its own. There's really not much bad I have to say about the multiplayer. The maps were fantastic. The gunplay was great. The weapons were great. This is the first one that was in modern setting, obviously. So that was fantastic. A lot of people were fatigued with World War II games, and this game definitely shook things up. Yeah, I mean, overall, it was just great. It added the perks, of course, the kill streaks. Had so many different modes. You even had that one mode, the cage match, the 1v1 mode back in the day. I remember I played that a few times. That was pretty fun. But yeah, overall, definitely deserves to be in the great category. It's not quite peak for me, but it is a very, very great game, and I don't blame anyone for putting it in peak. Next up, we have World at War, and this might be a hot take, but for me, this game is peak. This is pretty much the first Call of Duty that really hooked me for a few reasons. One, we'll go ahead and start with the campaign. This is my favorite Call of Duty campaign, bar none. I absolutely love its take on World War II. It's super dark. It's super gritty. It's not here to mess around and make jokes. It's here to show the absolute bleakness and horror of war, and I absolutely love it. The missions are so iconic. I love the dual protagonist system between the Americans and the Russians, and you know, I love how this was the first World War II game to add in the Pacific Front, so you have the battles with the Japanese as well as, of course, your classic battles with the Germans. Absolutely love this campaign. It even had the cool little like playing cards or whatever, where you could find those and it would like add crazy effects to your game. I remember it'd make it even scarier sometimes. The campaign was actually one of the creepiest to get through sometimes, for sure. And then, of course, it had tanks. So, like, you had a whole tank mission. You had a mission where you're in a plane and you're on the turrets or whatever. Very, very good campaign with a lot of variety. Definitely my favorite. Multiplayer, this was the first one that I played a good amount of. I played a decent amount of COD 4 multiplayer for sure, but I played even more World at War multiplayer. Do I think it's better? Not necessarily. I think, you know, overall, World at War was basically a COD 4 clone in the World War II setting in terms of multiplayer. And a lot of people didn't want to play World at War because it was back to the World War II setting. A lot of people were just over it. Me personally, though, I remember around the time this game came out, I was spending a lot more time with my great-grandpa who actually fought in World War II. And so that just made this game's setting hit way harder for me. I love the World War II setting. This game is responsible for it being my favorite setting personally. I know a lot of people don't agree with that because especially these days, Call of Duty devs have no idea what they're doing with World War II setting. But World at War was definitely a huge factor in me being interested in the setting and the history. And of course the gore and everything. I forgot to mention that. The gore and the multiplayer and the campaign, incredible. You know, you hit somebody with a double-barreled shotgun, you blow them in half. Ridiculous. But obviously the main thing that sets this game apart from every game before it is the fact that it was the first to introduce zombies. And I mean, look, zombies is pretty much carrying the Call of Duty franchise for me. I was a zombies only YouTuber for a few years. It is one of my favorite things in all of gaming. Even though maybe I'm not as crazy about it as I used to be. The golden era of zombies was still the best from World at War to BO3, but even to this day, I think I'll always play it, I'll always enjoy it. Yeah, World at War Zombies, even though a lot of people will hate on it now because it's a bit outdated, I still love it, I still think it's great, and if you're on PC, you get custom zombies, so you have like infinite maps, and some of the World at War custom maps are still my all-time favorite. So yeah, I absolutely love World at War. Peak video game right there. Maybe a hot take, I don't know. But hey, this is my list. If you disagree, let me know your picks down below in the comments. Moving on, we have yet another game that's going to go straight into peak, and that is Modern Warfare 2. I don't really know which one I would put in the top spot, but I think right now I'm going to go like that. Modern Warfare 2, one of the most iconic Call of Duties of all time, probably tied with Black Ops 2, especially, you know, all the memes about the game chat lobbies. Starting off with campaign, though, the campaign was really good. It's not as good as COD 4's campaign, in my opinion, and it's definitely not as good as World at War's campaign. However, it was still really good and really memorable. And they kind of went for more of like an action movie vibe with the campaign in this one. It's not necessarily super focused on trying to tell some sort of grounded, you know, war story anymore. This is kind of where Call of Duty campaigns went for more action. Personally, I don't prefer that as much, but it's still pretty good. And obviously you had that crazy twist, and there was a lot of cool story moments that happened in that one. So overall, good campaign. I loved when you beat it and you get to go in the museum and like fight off all the different figures from the campaign. I thought that was cool. And you get to use all the different guns too, but I don't really have much to say about that. It was a great campaign, but not like one of the most peak ever. And by the way, I do want to go ahead and just say ahead of time, I'm ranking all of these games based on all of their modes. So like, I will probably at some point do tier lists for like just zombies or just multiplayer or whatever. But right now with this tier list, I'm just focusing on all modes combined. So do keep that in mind. And obviously, you know, there's some modes that matter to me more than others. I would say campaign probably has the least amount of pull in terms of my list, but it's definitely still a factor, so keep that in mind. As far as multiplayer, I mean, let's be real, like Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer, that's what this was all about. That's what this game was all about. That's where all the hype was. This multiplayer elevated Call of Duty even more. You know, we thought COD 4 was a big step up, which it was. Modern Warfare 2 was the next step up, and it was fantastic. Probably my favorite Call of Duty multiplayer of all time. It's close with Black Ops 2 for me, but this is definitely like one of the most iconic multiplayers. I play it to death. This is the first one where I actually went like pretty much all the way to 10th prestige. Before this, I never even played anywhere close to that much in the multiplayer, but I played this so much. You had the extra kill streaks, the customizable kill streaks, you had the pro perks, dual wield weapons, you had just all sorts of madness in this game. The death streaks, you know, even though those weren't really great. You had so many crazy things in this game. The maps were obviously iconic yet again. And yeah, I mean, I could sit here and gush about Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer all day long. Of course, who could forget the game chat lobbies, right? This is where boys became men. I will say, you know, obviously a lot of people are like, oh, the one-man army noob tubes, you know, broke the game or whatever. During this game's lifespan, which I did play this in its prime, I didn't really experience that. It wasn't until this game's lifespan was coming to a close where I started to see a lot of people abusing that. So I got to play the game pretty much for the most part without dealing with that, and it was fantastic. However, I definitely think that stuff makes it pretty hard to play these days, because these days people are just absolute rats. Back in the day, nobody really cared. You just played the game for fun, but now everybody wants to be absolutely annoying and do whatever it takes to win. So maybe in 2025 it's not the best, but back in its prime, it was absolute peak. And of course, we had Spec Ops. This is the first co-op mode added other than zombies, of course. And Spec Ops is not as good as zombies, obviously, but it's not the same thing. Overall, I like Spec Ops. I played the stealth missions quite a bit. It was always fun trying to clear the mission without getting spotted. Very fun, but not too much to say about Spec Ops overall. But yeah, MW2 is peak, without a doubt. And then next up, we have Black Ops 1. Now for me, Black Ops 1 is probably going to go in great. I'll put it in top of great. It's not quite peak. I'll explain why in a little bit, but overall, it is a great game. And starting off, let's go ahead and talk about the campaign. The campaign is a top 3 campaign for sure. My top 3 campaigns are World at War, Black Ops 1, Modern Warfare, or COD 4. Black Ops 1 campaign was crazy. It was all about what's real, what's not, brainwashing, tons of flashbacks, and trying to put the pieces together of the story, and it was just really interesting. It touched on settings that we hadn't seen before yet in the Call of Duty franchise, like Vietnam, a little bit of Cold War era. Oh, and I forgot to mention that, you know, both Black Ops 1 and World at War campaigns had the zombies wonder weapons as like hidden Easter eggs in them, which was so good, because in World at War you could get the ray gun, and Black Ops 1 you get the thunder gun. Very, very good. Love that. But yeah, overall the campaign's great. I don't really have anything specific to talk about with it. I just really like what they did with the story, and the characters are very, very iconic. As far as multiplayer is concerned, this is where, hot take maybe, I'm probably gonna get some heat for this one. This is where Black Ops 1 is held back just a little bit for me. A lot of people love this game's multiplayer. A lot of people will put it as like their favorite of all time. I didn't really feel that way. I definitely preferred Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer 100%. To me, Black Ops 1, this is where I really got into Search and Destroy. So I'll say this, Search and Destroy in Black Ops 1 was fantastic. I played it a ton. That was pretty much all I played. If I was going to play multiplayer in BO1, it was Search and Destroy. I did not really like the respawn modes in this game. Personally, I just felt like the pacing and the hit detection and the connection was just a lot worse than Modern Warfare 2. Also, graphically, I felt like the game just didn't pop as much as Modern Warfare 2. So yeah, overall, I didn't really play a ton of multiplayer in this game. In fact, I think I only got to like Prestige 2. And you know, they did add like the COD point system. You know, back in the day, COD points you earned in game through like contracts and whatnot. It wasn't, you know, pull out mom's credit card and there you go. And that system was cool, but ultimately, like back then, I was a little kid. It was starting to make things complicated. My little child brain couldn't comprehend. So I was just like, bro, why can't I just level up and get the thing? So in retrospect, I think it was a great system, but at the time, I was not really a fan of it. I felt like it just added another barrier to getting new stuff for me personally. But I do think it was a cool system in retrospect, and I would love to see them bring it back again someday, but they probably never will. If they did, they'd have to rename it to something else. As the meme says, do not abbreviate COD points. The wager match thing was cool. You could like bet COD points or whatever and play like the party game modes, which the party game modes were a great addition for sure. Didn't play a ton of multiplayer. But that's because I was playing a absolute crap ton of zombies, and that is where this game absolutely shines. Black Ops 1 Zombies is still to this day my second favorite zombies experience. That's probably a hot take as well. A lot of people look back on this game, they're like, bruh, you only liked it because of nostalgia. I could still play this now and have an absolute blast. To me, they just took everything that World at War did, and aside from the horror factor, which honestly none of these games ever got scarier than World at War, but aside from the horror factor that World at War Zombies had, they took everything about the game and just turned it up and made it better. They added Easter eggs for the first time, which was fantastic. The maps were way bigger, way more creative, way more interesting. There were more maps. The gameplay was better. You had crazier wonder weapons. They just expanded everything. You know, new perks, crazy new perks, like PhD and Stamina, which were fantastic. Mule Kick, which maybe not fantastic, but it was interesting. Deadshot, again, kind of garbage, but you know what? They were adding a new perk like almost every map. Yeah, there's just so much new that was added. So much creativity went to BO1. The story was starting to kind of come into its own. World at War didn't have much of a story, but BO1, they definitely pushed for a story in zombies, and I thought it was great. I absolutely love BO1 zombies, and who could forget Dead Ops Arcade, right? In fact, Dead Ops is coming back for the 4th time in BO7, and I can't wait for it. Absolutely love Dead Ops Arcade. If you never played it, go play it, go check it out. It may seem weird at first, but trust me, it's very addicting, and I still to this day have never beat a single Dead Ops because it is ridiculously hard, but maybe one day I will. But yeah, overall, Black Ops 1, great Call of Duty, just not quite peak for me. Modern Warfare 3, okay. We're talking about hot takes. I'm gonna throw another one at you. Is gonna go in good. For me personally, well, I probably should wait before I get to multiplayer. We'll go ahead and start with the campaign. Campaign, it was a good conclusion to the Modern Warfare trilogy, for sure. However, I do not remember as much about this campaign as I did with the first 2 Modern Warfares. I remember the last few missions, especially the finale. And, you know, Soap's death, spoilers, sorry. Game's been out forever now. It is what it is. But I remember stuff like that, but honestly, most of this campaign, I do not remember. It's just not one that I replayed as much. But overall, it was good, and it was a great send-off for the Modern Warfare campaign, you know, trilogy or whatever. But as far as multiplayer is concerned, I think Modern Warfare 3 is a pretty solid multiplayer Call of Duty. I just felt like this was Modern Warfare 2 again, but not as fresh. And I know a lot of people will disagree with that and say, you know, but lucky, it took Modern Warfare 2 and fixed it. I get what you're saying, and if you're somebody who started with Modern Warfare 3, or if you're somebody who's going back to these games, I totally get why you would prefer Modern Warfare 3, because Modern Warfare 2 is completely freaking broken. But Modern Warfare 2 was super fresh, super innovative, and like I said, during its first year, I didn't have any of those problems with everything being like, you know, completely abused. So Modern Warfare 3 just kind of, you know, it wasn't very different from Modern Warfare 2 for the most part, at least, you know, compared to like the differences between the other Call of Duties at that time. You know, BO1 to BO2, there's much more of a difference there between Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3. Obviously, it's because Infinity Ward, there was that whole falling out with Zampella and West, and most of the studio left for MW3. They had to bring in Sledgehammer to help them, you know, finish the game or whatever. So obviously they couldn't just come up with a bunch of new things, and to their credit, they did find new things to add in, like the specialist package, the support package, and I think it was a solid multiplayer experience overall. Definitely nothing wrong with it. However, for me, I didn't play a ton of this game's multiplayer. Honestly, I think at this time I was just so locked into zombies that I was just playing a bunch of zombies still in BO1, but it was a pretty good multiplayer for sure, especially compared to anything, you know, that's coming out these days. So I don't want to hate on Modern Warfare 3. I don't want Modern Warfare 3 enjoyers to come at my throat over this take, but just for me personally, I'm putting it here because didn't find it as exciting and fresh as Modern Warfare 2. I did play a lot of Survival though. Survival in MW3 was fantastic, loved it. Obviously, it's not as good as Zombies, but hey, overall, it was pretty dang good. And I always loved trying to see how far I could make it on those maps. But man, when the Juggernaut started coming in, you know, oh, that was rough. Like, just every round got like 5 of those dudes. It got real tough, but Survival was a ton of fun. Spec Ops was also in this game, but I gotta be honest, like, it was completely overshadowed by Survival. So yeah, overall, I think MW3 is, honestly, you could say it's a great Call of Duty, but I'm just putting it in good because I didn't really get enough out of it to put it up with these other games. Anyways, moving on, Black Ops 2, in my opinion, the greatest Call of Duty of all time, and I will explain to you why it's the greatest Call of Duty of all time. Before we even get into any mode, the reason that I choose this as the greatest Call of Duty of all time, which thankfully for me, we finally are back to a normal take, not a hot take, so hopefully not too many people will come at me for that, but this is across the board fantastic. There's not a weak part of this game. There's not even a mid part of this game. Every part of this game, every mode is great at the bare minimum. Great to fantastic. and that's why it's, in my opinion, the best Call of Duty. But starting off, we'll talk about campaign. Campaign was very good. I didn't like it as much as BO1 or World at War, but I did like it a lot, and I liked it more than Modern Warfare 3's campaign. Maybe I liked it about the same as Modern Warfare 2. I'm not entirely sure. It was cool seeing the flashbacks, you know, to the 1980s timeline as well as the futuristic timeline. You know, this is the first futuristic Call of Duty, so that was very interesting. It's not futuristic anymore. It's literally a modern era Call of Duty, but, you know, at the time, it was cool seeing all that stuff. The story was very interesting. Menendez is a GOAT villain. I'll never forget the mission where you play as him and you're just absolutely bloodlusted. That was crazy. This was the first Call of Duty where they added different endings and you could like pick and choose different outcomes and save different characters. That all was really cool and really fun. Black Ops 2 is a fantastic campaign for sure. And then, of course, multiplayer. Multiplayer, it's just, I mean, everybody loves Black Ops 2 multiplayer, right? I mean, just across the board, this game's multiplayer did everything right. The respawn modes were fantastic. Search and Destroy was fantastic, especially Forced Game Chat back in the day. Oh, man. This was my first into the game chat world. And my God, was it an absolute blast. Even though I was like 12 years old and everybody was making fun of me, I didn't care. I was having the time of my life. But yeah, the maps were fantastic. Also, I forgot to say that with BO1. BO1's multiplayer maps were fantastic. Okay, like let's not get it mistaken. Amazing maps. But yeah, Black Ops 2 also fantastic maps. You could argue they're even better than BO1, but I would say they're around the same. And the guns were so iconic. MSMC, still probably my favorite SMG of all time. Also, the YouTube community during this time, like Vanoss and all of them, KY or Speedy, if you guys remember him. The content creation during the BO2 era was amazing. Yeah, I just absolutely love this game's multiplayer, and this was the first one to have a Prestige Master, and I got to Prestige 7 and then reset for some stupid reason. I don't remember why I did that, but I literally, after resetting, got all the way back to Prestige Master. So this was easily the most time I had spent in a Call of Duty multiplayer up until that point. Also, I will say this was the first Call of Duty, I think, where they had microtransactions, which obviously big L. However, the way they did in this game was great because you just spent like $2 on a really sick camo. Obviously, weaponized 115 was great. I missed those days. Now it's like $20 for a camo, $20 for a bundle, $30 sometimes. It's getting ridiculous, but yeah, the multiplayer is goated. There's just no denying that. And also the league play and the competitive scene is like the best competitive Call of Duty that there ever was. And then Zombies was interesting. I'll say it was interesting. It was ultimately great, but it was interesting because it started off kind of rough with transit, you know. We didn't really know what to expect with that map. It was the most unique and different map at the time, and it didn't really work for most people. Die Rise, another map that didn't really work for most people, including myself. However, it's starting to grow on me a little bit. But then you had Jason Blundell come in, take over with Mob of the Dead, and then he did Origins. Easily the two best maps of the game for most people. I would put Buried above Mob, but both of those are fantastic. And they kind of took Zombies and made it more cinematic, more story-driven, objective-driven almost. Obviously, it was still round-based, but I feel like Mob and Origins just have a certain level of like aura and professionalism, if you want to call it that, to them compared to all the other BO2 maps. It was very good. Mob definitely saved the game. Maybe a rough start to BO2 Zombies, but overall, the DLC season, they absolutely cooked. And they had some other game modes in there like Grief and Turned. Grief was cool. Turned, barely played it. It's my third favorite Zombies. It's not my second or first, but it is really, really great. And I definitely don't fault anyone for saying it's their favorite. But yeah, BO2 overall, peak Call of Duty, no question. Call of Duty Ghosts. Now, here we go. We're coming back with the hot take. Here's my hot take. It's better than Modern Warfare 3. Now, that might be blasphemous to some people. Let me explain. First off, the campaign. The campaign was not a part of the Modern Warfare universe. I don't think. Maybe it was. Can't remember if there was like debate on that, if it was like actually a Modern Warfare sequel or not, but I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But regardless, it didn't really have any ties back to Modern Warfare, other than, of course, you know, the ghost mask and all that. I thought the campaign was pretty good overall. It went for a bit of a different approach. You had a villain this time that was a villain, but he was like one of your boys, you know? Like, he had sort of a downfall, fall from grace, if you will. And so it made his character a lot more interesting, a lot more relatable. And you could totally understand why he was a villain, which I guess that was sort of the same as Menendez, but Menendez is a little bit more evil, I guess. The campaign was different. It was more focused on your squad, which was cool. Kind of reminded me of like Halo Reach. It did something unique, and I enjoyed it for what it was. And of course the dog, you know, all the dog memes. The dog was pretty cool. It's not like one of the greatest campaigns ever, but I would argue I liked it just as much as Modern Warfare 3's campaign. Obviously Modern Warfare 3's ending, the stuff it did with the story to conclude the Modern Warfare trilogy was more impactful. But I would argue as like an entire campaign experience, Ghost I liked probably just as much. So campaign is pretty good overall, but nothing like crazy. Also, don't ask me why, but when I was recording this commentary, for some reason I just completely forgot to mention the absolutely insane cliffhanger ending that this game's campaign had. Genuinely one of the craziest endings of any Call of Duty campaign. Heck, honestly, a lot of video game campaigns in general. So yeah, I would love to see Ghost 2 just to see a follow-up to that campaign's ending, because my god, it was crazy. But we're probably never going to get a follow-up, so that's unfortunate. Multiplayer, obviously multiplayer is where this game kind of falls apart. This was, in my opinion, the first Call of Duty multiplayer where the cracks were starting to show. BO2 is considered the end of the golden age for a reason, right? Because Ghost, its multiplayer was just not it for most people. You know, they went for way bigger maps. They had that whole system where, like, instead of care packages, you had to get the field orders. And I remember some of the challenges were, like, really weird. Like, you got the field orders, and then you would, like, have to teabag a guy after killing him in order to get a care package. It made no sense. And then also, they had, like, they tried to go for, like, the Battlefield destructible environments, except it was the most Walmart brand watered down crap ever, where like, oh boy, you could knock one freaking set of logs over like it's Return of the Jedi, and the Ewoks are on Endor, you know, knocking down ATSTs with logs. Like, what are we doing? Like, honestly, what are we doing? It was a cool little gimmick, I guess, but it didn't really make any difference. Also, this game had a super fast time to kill. Modern Warfare games already had a fast time to kill, but I believe this was even faster, especially if you ran that one perk that was kind of like stopping power. It just went to like hardcore level pretty much with the TTK. Maps were definitely the biggest downfall of the launch. They were just way too big. Like Stonehaven, that was a Battlefield map, let's be real. But I did love Search and Rescue. That was something they added to this game. Also, they added Cranked. That was a really cool mode. They added Blitz as well, which kind of an underrated mode most people don't talk about, but Cranked, that was the big one that people loved. And then Search and Rescue, for me, that's why I played the most. This was, again, another Call of Duty that mostly came down to just S&D, right? That was what I played. I didn't really play a ton of respawn modes. However, the DLC season was absolutely on point for this game's multiplayer. All the DLC maps were just way better. Like, the team just locked in for the DLC season. You had the Predator, you had Michael Myers, you had that one map where they had like Ghost Pirates or whatever that would come out. Like, the maps were so unique, so interesting. Absolutely amazing DLC season. It totally made up for the pretty rough launch. And then as far as the third mode, this is where we had Extinction brought into the mix, and unfortunately it's never been brought back since, but I think Extinction is absolutely amazing. Super underrated mode. I wish they would bring it back. It is not zombies, and that's completely okay. It's its own thing. Kind of reminds me more of like Left 4 Dead. You have like a ton of different progression. You have, you know, the armory where you can unlock all these different abilities and whatnot, and it's got its own grind or whatever. You have the relics, which can make the game harder but give you more XP, which they're kind of going to do that with Black Ops 7 zombies, so that'll be interesting. And then you had, in my opinion, just some really solid maps with a really fun progression from beginning to end. Point of Contact, the first map, was definitely the most basic, but honestly, I probably played it the most. When we got to Nightfall and Mayday and Awakening and Exodus, those maps were crazy. It was the first game to introduce boss fights, which was awesome. And they were pretty difficult sometimes, not just the boss fights, but the games themselves, or the maps themselves. Overall, Extinction was an absolute blast. I don't care about the fact that it wasn't a endless wave-based horde mode. You don't need everything to just have a never-ending number go up for it to have replay value. That was one thing that made me so mad with the zombies community during this time. They were bashing this crap so hard because it wasn't endless. Bro, you don't need an endless round-based mode to have replay value, and Extinction proves that. There's so much replay value to the game. I absolutely loved it, and I thought it was great. Definitely, without a doubt, my favorite non-zombies side mode, and honestly, I would put Extinction over probably a good chunk of actual zombies games. I hope one day it comes back and not in the form of freaking Beast from Beyond Aliens, because that was trash. Next game, Advanced Warfare. Here we go, another hot take inbound. I'm gonna put this at the top of good. Maybe I could put it in great. I don't know. I'm gonna put it at the top of good for now. It pretty much just comes down to the multiplayer, which I'll get into it in a minute, but I absolutely loved it. Campaign. This is the campaign with Kevin Spacey, you know, hide your kids. This campaign, again, kind of like Ghost, was a standalone thing. Advanced Warfare was the first really futuristic Call of Duty. It was the first one with exo movement. And to be honest, thought the campaign was pretty good overall. Nothing crazy. I definitely liked it quite a bit, but it's not up there with like the best Black Ops or Modern Warfare campaigns for sure, but it holds its own. I thought that the cutscenes and like the graphics of this game were just next level. So cinematic at the time, looked way better than anything before it. It felt like a next-gen Call of Duty. You know, what we saw there was definitely Advanced Warfare, I'll say that. But as far as multiplayer, that's where this game is very interesting, because for me personally, I'm just gonna be honest, this is like a top 5 multiplayer Call of Duty of all time for me. And I know that's like insane to hear for some people, because you either love this game's multiplayer or you hate it, and it comes down to the exo movement. If you enjoyed the movement and mastered it, you loved this game. If you didn't, you absolutely hated this game. Like, they tried to add a mode without exo movement, and nobody played it because the maps were designed around exo movement, so it was like just completely unplayable and garbage. The movement was fantastic. I played this crap to death, especially with the whole supply drop system. There was a ton to grind for, which I know people hate supply drops now and then as well. But I think that with Advanced Warfare, it was new and interesting and fun. Obviously, you're going to have people who didn't even like it at the time, but I would argue supply drops did not really start to get absolutely hated on until Black Ops 3. I think with Advanced Warfare, they were new and fresh and fun, and if you played the game a lot, you could get pretty much whatever you wanted, whereas Black Ops 3, those chances of getting those guns were so bad. I played the game just as much as AW and got pretty much nothing. And I spent way more money on that game, but I'll get to BO3 in a little bit. But I just loved the different kinds of weapons and everything, especially because Destiny came out at the same time. I was a huge Destiny fan, and, you know, the whole looter shooter aspect, it was like they kind of added that into Call of Duty, which for balance sake is pretty terrible, but in terms of fun factor, I thought it was great. And yeah, just overall, loved the movement, loved the setting, loved the gunplay. It just seemed like they focused on the fun. You know, they didn't really give a crap about anything else, and I respect that. So yeah, hot take probably, but I love that game's multiplayer. Also, I thought it was cool how you could customize your kill streaks in that one. But I will say the EMP spam was absolutely terrible in that game from what I remember. There was so much EMP spam, it was horrible. Speaking of EMP spam ruining a mode, let's go ahead and talk about Exo Zombies. First non-Treyarch Zombies game mode wasn't even here at launch. It was added with DLC 1. I'm just gonna be honest, like overall, was this okay as a filler between BO2 and BO3? Yes, absolutely, it was a decent little filler game. But holy crap, in terms of quality, you have World at War, BO1, and BO2 at the top. They're not on the same level, but just for comparison's sake, let's say they're at the top. Exos is like down at the bottom. Like the drop off in quality is tremendous. I will say that if you're just playing for fun, maybe it's not that bad, like just kind of goofing around, going for high rounds. But the Easter eggs just are the worst things ever. I'll be honest, I had a decent outlook on this game back in the day because I never did the Easter eggs. But a couple years ago, I went back and did all the Easter eggs, and those things were so bad that they have ruined my perspective on this game mode forever. I know you can just not do them, but like they're that bad that they just made me forever look at this game with just disdain. Dumbest Easter egg steps of all time were just infuriating garbage. Not a fan, but overall, it was okay. There were some stupid mechanics here and there, but it was fine. I feel like the first map was the best one. It was downhill after that. The exosuit, in my opinion, just did not really work that well in zombies, especially with all the EMP zombies. Exo movement, way better in multiplayer, in my opinion, but it was an interesting little experiment. I don't want to hate on too much, but it just wasn't really for me. Also, Advanced Warfare had its own survival mode. I didn't play it a ton. I did play it to unlock the hidden zombies cutscene at the end. It was okay, it was fun, but didn't hit quite as hard as MW3 Survival. But overall, I think Advanced Warfare, top of good. That's where I'm going to rank it. I enjoyed it. But for me, mostly it's just the multiplayer, just elevating it up. Alright, now we're on to Black Ops 3. Black Ops 3, it's got to go at the top of great for me. Not quite peak, but man, it is close. However, there's one thing that holds it back from going into peak, and that's the campaign. And like I said, I'm rating these games as a whole, and when you have one mode that is absolutely freaking garbage, it just can't go in peak. Even though the other two modes are amazing, the campaign is trash. And let's get into it. The campaign for Black Ops 3, what the heck were they doing? I think Jason Blundell, he was the lead developer for the campaign and the zombies at the same time, I'm pretty sure. And brother, he just he put all of his attention into zombies, which I'm glad he did. But holy crap, I don't know what he was doing with the campaign. They went for like a very confusing narrative with this whole plot twist at the end where it turns out that, you know, you actually died at the beginning of the campaign and you're reliving someone's memories or something. You don't even have a clue what's happening in this game's campaign until the final mission and the credits roll. And even then, you're not entirely sure, and you probably have to look up a video. There are certain games where that's fine, but I don't think Call of Duty is one of them. The most memorable thing about this game's campaign is the train go boom meme. You know, the most memorable thing about your campaign is like the dumbest meme in existence. That's how you know it's a trash campaign. But they did have the realism mode added in, which I thought was cool. I never beat it on that because it's ridiculously hard. You die in like one shot, but it's cool that they had an even harder mode. And they also had the Nightmares Zombies campaign, which was pretty much campaign missions, but with zombies in them. It was neat, but they didn't really do a whole lot with it. And they also had a hub area or whatever, and you could like make your own class, which you could make your own class in BO2 campaign, but in this one it was like you had the hub area and then you make your class in there and head out. That was cool, but ultimately, this game's campaign was just not it. I don't even remember the gameplay necessarily being that memorable, like the missions themselves. And honestly, when I think about this game's campaign, I just think about that absolutely convoluted mess of a story. Not even close to a good campaign, in my opinion. So that's really what holds this game back from being peak. But let's go ahead and move away from the bad into the great, which of course is the multiplayer. The multiplayer, this is the first Advanced Movement Black Ops game, and instead of Advanced Warfare's movement where it was just double jumps and dashes and all that, they went for more of like a balanced approach where you had a bit of a glide. It definitely flowed a lot better and bridged the gap better between boots on the ground and advanced movement. And it was really smooth, and you also had wall running. However, I personally preferred Advanced Warfare's movement. Maybe that's a hot take, but in my opinion, if you're going to go for something, go all in. Advanced Warfare, they just went all in on it. BO3 movement was really good too. Maps were pretty solid as well. Gunplay was great. This is the first game with dark matter, so I did grind for that, and that was a lot of fun, but it's the only multiplayer camo grind I've ever actually finished, because after that, the multiplayer grinds got ridiculous. I didn't really bother with some of them, and some of them I got close, but I just couldn't bring myself to finish them. But BO3, I did it, and they also had that safeguard mode into the game, which was pretty fun. You like escort a robot. Overall, the multiplayer was great. Where it falls apart though a little bit is the supply drop system. Instead of Advanced Warfare's system of having weapon variants, they instead decided to lock actual weapons that they added to the game behind the supply drops, and these things had like a 1% or less drop chance. And like I said, I spent like hundreds of dollars on this game and played it a lot and got nothing. And you know what? I don't regret a dang thing, because spending all that money on this game taught me a valuable lesson in life, which is to save money. So thank you, Black Ops 3, for having such a unfair supply drop system that you taught a young me how to save money and be financially responsible. You know, W game. But yeah, the supply drop system was trash in this game. I did not like it at all. Advanced Warfare's system was a lot better in my opinion. And plus, it felt like it was like a complete freaking slog to actually earn supply drops in this game. Like, without a double crypto key weekend, this crap was rough. Unless you just want to open commons, which sucked. That held this game back a lot. This is where the monetization was starting to get pretty annoying, but Other than that, the multiplayer was pretty freaking great. Once again, I forgot to bring up something fairly important, which was the specialist system in this game, which, you know, obviously it was character based and each character had their own little ability or whatever. It was a little bit of a controversial feature, but I actually didn't mind it and I had no issues with it and I enjoyed it. A lot of people didn't really hate it in Black Ops 3. It wasn't until Black Ops 4 where they went a little too far with it, and of course we haven't seen specials come back since. But I would be totally down with them bringing back specialists one day because I thought it was fairly fun and added a little bit of extra flavor to the game, but I could do with or without specialists, honestly. It doesn't really matter. And then let's move on to zombies, of course. That is like the most peak zombies mode of them all, in my opinion. They went for more of the Mob of the Dead origin style approach with BO3 zombies because, you know, Blundell was now the lead. So the maps were really cinematic, had so much content in them. They had boss fights, which Advanced Warfare did add the first zombies boss, which was Oz. So I probably should have mentioned that. And that was cool. But BO3 took the boss fights and added them into all the DLC maps and blew them out. The Easter eggs were epic and a ton of fun for the most part. And in my opinion, this game has the most consistently great lineup of maps in any zombies game. A lot of the maps in this game are some of the best of all time, and then the weakest maps in this game are just great. There is not a single bad map. There is not a single mid map in this game. They were firing on all cylinders. And with Zombies Chronicles and custom maps on PC, brother, like, this is infinite replay value with the prestige system as well. Like, BO3 Zombies is the GOAT, undisputed. Honestly, that's pretty surprising to say because I started with World at War, and you know, they always say like you always love your first or whatever, and this was like what, my 5th zombies game that I played, and it's the best. So that just shows you how good BO3 was. I don't know if we're ever gonna get a zombies game even close to that again, but here's to hoping BO7 Zombies can be at least pretty good. I don't expect it to be anywhere close, but hopefully maybe it can be the best since BO3. Anyways, great Call of Duty, almost peak, but that campaign is trash. Oh yeah, Dead Ops Arcade, I forgot. They brought Dead Ops Arcade 2 into the game. I loved it even more than the first one. Absolutely amazing. I loved all the mini games they added. So dang good. All right, next game, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Oh man. Infinite Warfare. I gotta put Infinite Warfare right here. I just didn't play much of this game, I gotta be honest. I really wasn't tuned into Call of Duty this year. A lot of people went over to Modern Warfare Remastered because they bundled them together. I played that a little bit, but ultimately I just didn't play much Call of Duty this year. And I think a lot of people probably are in the same boat that I was. And obviously this game's reception on its initial trailer was horrific. It was the most futuristic game we've ever gotten and probably will ever get because you were literally in space, like on different planets and stuff. Despite all the bad reception and everything, the fact that I didn't play it as much, I do think Infinite Warfare is a pretty like solid Call of Duty game. And we'll go ahead and start with the campaign. The campaign, a lot of people say it's like one of the best of all time. It was really good. It had like side missions and stuff in it, kind of take your own path sort of thing. The story was really sad. It was a very like emotional campaign, and I don't remember a ton about it because I only played it once, but I do remember it being a really good campaign, and they definitely put their all into it, and it was fun playing a campaign that was just totally unlike any other. I don't know if I would put it in like my top favorites of all time. Maybe if I went back and played it again, but at the time I thought it was really good, but it's not beating World at War, COD 4, BO1, anything like that. And then multiplayer, I actually think Infinite Warfare multiplayer was pretty dang good. But again, I just didn't play it very much. They went for the same movement as BO3, pretty much. It was pretty much BO3, but a little bit more futuristic, to be honest. And in some ways, I really liked what they did, even more so than BO3. It just wasn't super different, and I wasn't into Call of Duty as much during that year, so I just didn't play it a whole lot. But it was solid. I don't really have a whole lot to say about this game, to be honest, because again, I didn't play it a ton. I will say the supply drop system was improved a lot, and they went for more of a variant style approach like Advanced Warfare instead of BO3's system with the supply drop weapons, which I definitely liked. I think that Infinite Warfare multiplayer was pretty good, very slept on, I would argue. Maybe not one of the best of all time, but definitely did not deserve the hate. It's just people were really tired of, you know, futuristic Call of Duties at that time, and unfortunately Infinite Warfare was the third one up in the cycle, and they just kind of had to take the hate and roll with it. And then, of course, the third mode, we had Zombies, the first ever Infinity Ward Zombies game mode, and this is the best non-Treyarch Zombies bar none. Like, absolutely. It went for a totally different approach. You know, it was kind of goofy, lighthearted, more focused on the fun. It also kind of dabbled into like the horror genre, not really in like a scary way, but more so in like your iconic monsters and settings. It definitely played on a certain vibe that was really nostalgic and really fun, and I enjoyed a lot. I didn't play a whole lot of IW Zombies again, but I did play a lot of Spaceland. Spaceland, one of the best maps of all time. I thought Rave was a lot of fun. I like Shaolin Shuffle. A lot of people hate that map. Attack of the Radioactive Thing and Beast, I barely played, but I gotta be honest, Beast seems absolutely terrible. But this game did have the super Easter egg, which everybody loves. I haven't done it, not done any Easter egg in this game, but it is really cool that they had the super Easter egg, and they had the boss rush, and they had the Mephistopheles boss fight. You could tell Infinity Ward really cared about zombies in this one. It's still one of the best zombies experiences that there is, honestly. It's just too bad that it kind of ended on a bit of a low note, but it started, and for most of its DLC season was definitely cooking. IW, great game overall, but unfortunately it was a victim of its timing. COD World War II. I'm going to put COD World War II, I think I'm going to put it right behind Infinite Warfare. As somebody who absolutely adores World at War for all the reasons I mentioned earlier, there were a lot of things that World War II did that were a downgrade. Like, we didn't have the Pacific Front anymore. It was back to just pretty much the US versus the Germans. We didn't even have the Russians. It was literally just a US versus German story, which is like the most played out thing in all of World War II. Obviously, it's iconic, it's great, I'm not hating on it, but it just doesn't compare to World at War with all of its different factions. I would love for a World War II game that somehow finds a way to cover like every group, but most of them can't even get as much in there as World at War did, so we'll probably never get that. As far as the campaign, I thought the campaign was solid. It was like super just standard run-of-the-mill Call of Duty campaign. Probably the most like bare bones back to basics COD campaign of all time, and I think that was cool at the time. Everybody wanted back to basics for sure, but it didn't really leave a huge impression on me. There were some things I appreciated about it. I liked when they dabbled into more of the kind of edgy sides of World War II, especially like the end. You know, I would love for them to go even further into the atrocities in World War II. I know I sound like a psychopath. It is what it is, okay? There's a lot there that these games haven't covered that they could cover, especially when it comes to the Japanese. If you know, you know, but a lot of people don't, unfortunately. And even us, to be honest. Like, everybody was cooked in World War II. Let's keep it 100, okay? Everybody was cooked in World War II. If they ever go back to the setting, go darker, go grittier, I think that would be great. But yeah, overall the campaign was good, but it wasn't anything crazy. Multiplayer, a lot of people love the multiplayer because of the updates it got and how it is now. But on launch, it was, first off, it was broken. You couldn't even use the headquarters, which the headquarters was like a Destiny style hub area that they did for multiplayer, where you went in third person and could hang out with other people and, you know, watch them open supply drops and get you all excited to pull out mom's credit card. It was kind of cringe, I'm not gonna lie, but the headquarters was a cool system, but it was completely broken on launch and just didn't work. The multiplayer I enjoyed. The maps were terrible for a Call of Duty at that time. The maps were not good, and there were like so few maps too, so that was not great. But it was nice playing in that setting again. It was nice playing boots on the ground again. And I love the war mode that they added. War mode was in World at War and Advanced Warfare, but in this game they kind of took it and made it its own thing. It was kind of more like Battlefield in a way, a little bit, with how the matches would play out, like Battlefield Rush. And I loved it. I played War all the time, but unfortunately there were only like two war maps or whatever on launch, so it did get old. But I played it a lot, really enjoyed it, but ultimately the game had a lot of problems, like the division system, which I enjoyed it, but it was very restricting. This is the first Call of Duty, I think, where they just stopped doing the Pick 10, which I should have mentioned that for BO2. Pick 10 introduced chef's kiss. This is where they started to move away from that. On launch, the divisions was not great, but they rolled out an update in April and it fixed a ton of issues with this game, made the game way more fun. However, it was too late because this was the year that Fortnite was popping off. This is the year that Fortnite dropped and took over the world, and I gotta be honest, I was playing Fortnite. You know, I was not playing this game, so it is what it is. I think a lot of people could probably, you know, relate to that, but that was what I was playing instead of World War II for the most part. And then zombies, this was the most hyped I've been for a zombies mode in a very long time. Because they were going all in for the dark and gritty horror vibe of World War II, and I was just eating up every second of it. The first initial like leak trailer that they have, not even the one that they uploaded, but the leak trailer that was a little bit different, was like one of the creepiest and greatest zombies trailers of all time. I think at the time the map, before it was called the Final Reich, it was called Army of the Dead. So if you ever want to watch that trailer, I think it was Army of the Dead leak trailer for World War II zombies or something like that. It's a little different to the official reveal trailer of World War II zombies, but dude, I played that crap on repeat over and over. Like, I was obsessed with it. It was so creepy. The game came out, and the Final Reich definitely delivered for the most part. It wasn't as scary as the trailer, but it definitely was creepy at times, especially when the power turns off and you got to do all that in the dark, and then the Brenner comes out. This game had the whole notebook system, at least for the Final Reich, which was fantastic. I hate that they didn't bring it back for the future maps. Having the casual guided Easter egg as well as the hardcore hidden one, that's how every zombies game should operate, in my opinion. Shout out to Skir Ritual, because they did that for all their maps. That's how every zombies map, in my opinion, should be operated, like, bar none. But yeah, Final Reich was great. After that, I'll be honest, I just did not play this game's DLC season. I beat the Final Reich like 3 or 4 times and played a ton. Never really played the DLC season. Actually, I didn't even have the DLCs because I was so into Fortnite that I just didn't buy the season pass for Call of Duty. And I didn't go back and play the DLC maps until way later on, and they were okay, but I didn't play them very much, I gotta be honest. So maybe one day I'll come back and do a deep dive on World War II zombies and its DLC, but overall, I don't think I'm missing a ton. A lot of people say it's just okay. I do know the Tortured Path was like the weirdest thing ever. Let's never do that again. I don't know what they were doing with that. Let's not do that. But yeah, overall, World War II is a good Call of Duty, but it's not a great Call of Duty in my opinion. It's not a bad one either. But moving on, we have Black Ops 4. Oh man, I'm gonna have to put Black Ops 4 at the top of good. First off, this game didn't have a campaign, obviously. They replaced it with Blackout, the first battle royale. In my opinion, Blackout as a mode is peak. Undeniably peak. It is my favorite battle royale, I think overall, like, of all time, because it is the only BR that got better with every single update. Like, Fortnite in its early days was peak, probably the most fun I ever had in a BR. PUBG in its early days was also peak, but both of those got worse with time. PUBG, I don't know as much, I didn't play as much, but Fortnite never got back to those early days, in my opinion. It's still fine, it's still good for the most part, but early Fortnite's the best. But Blackout, every single update was getting better and better. Where Blackout is right now is the best version of Blackout. I love the fun factor. I love the map incorporating classic areas and zombies into a BR. So good. The sniping in this battle royale with the paladin, bro. Oh, goosebumps. If we were just talking Blackout alone, it'd be a peak. But we have the rest of the game to talk about. I think the rest of the game is good, but as far as multiplayer is concerned, I think it was interesting. They went for more of an Overwatch style approach, really high health, like characters with different abilities, and it was good overall, but I barely played this game's multiplayer. So yeah, I don't really have much to say. That's why I'm not going to rank it too high, because I just didn't play it a ton. For me, all of my multiplayer PvP time was pretty much almost entirely in Blackout. And then zombies in this game is a mixed bag. This is the first Treyarch Zombies game that was not peak. I know a lot of people love BO4 now, and that's fine. I totally get why you do. It appeals exclusively to the hardcore fan base. First off, we have to talk about the launch. Like, the launch was a disaster, which BO3 actually had a pretty rough launch too. A lot of people don't talk about that. I actually had more issues with BO3 on launch than BO4, but BO4 seemed to have affected the most amount of people and had the most problems, so I definitely recognize that. It had a ton of content. You know, we had 4 maps at launch, which was fantastic, but it could have been perceived as a quantity over quality scenario, because while a map like 9 was fantastic, a map like Voyage was not. I thought Classified was pretty good. I wasn't crazy about Blood of the Dead on launch, but I didn't play it enough to really form an opinion. Also, Mob was never like my favorite map ever. Hot take maybe, I don't know, but I thought it was a good map, but I was playing Classified 9 the most. But I know a lot of people like live and die by Blood, so I don't want to say too much about it, get me in trouble. But yeah, it had a massive launch offering. BO4 Zombies probably has the most like replay value and content of any of the Zombies games in the franchise, excluding like custom maps, of course. But with that being said, it had a lot of issues, and the perk system was not it. The different difficulties were interesting, but ultimately I felt like there was just too many options in my opinion. Also, I just did not like the way the game felt. And I really did not like the way the game looked on console. Like on console, this game looked worse than Black Ops 3 by a decent margin. On PC, it looks better than Black Ops 3. But on console, this crap was nerfed to death. Like, I don't know what the deal was, but it did look good in terms of its art style and everything. It just graphically was not great. Graphically, it was a downgrade. And gameplay wise, it was a downgrade. What saved it ultimately was just how much content there was in the beginning. And I did have a lot of fun with BO4 on launch, but this is where a lot of my friends just kind of stopped playing zombies, and the community was like really down on the game as well. And so the sentiment around almost this entire year of zombies was really negative. It just made it kind of hard to get through. It was not very fun being a part of the community at that time. And a lot of people love the game now, especially with some of the stuff we've got now, because you know, BO4 can kind of be looked at as like the last traditional like classic zombies game, if you want to call it that. I would still say it's probably more BO3, but BO4 is kind of this weird like in between. But it's definitely the last zombies that I feel like was really dedicated to hardcore fans, that's for sure. But you know, we had a couple DLC maps that were good, like Ancient Evil and Tagged or Toad and people like that, but I did not like how all the Ether maps were remakes. That was super lame. It was cool they added the Chaos story into the game, but they just completely abandoned the Chaos story. I know their original plan was they were gonna have like 2 DLC seasons, but obviously that did not happen. And then we never got the factions, you know. Where are the factions, Blundell? Come on now. Yeah, overall, BO4, by today's standards, pretty good, but after getting World at War BO1, BO2, and BO3, it seemed like Treyarch could not miss, and it seemed like they were just getting better and better with each time. And BO4 completely proved that wrong at the time. I know people are not gonna like me saying that now because a lot of people love it, but it just is the case. Like, the community, in my opinion, the community sentiment was arguably worse at that time than it is now, solely because we were not conditioned to have a bad zombies experience at the time. At least for Treyarch. Now, like, the community is just freaking immune to garbage at this point, or mid games, if you want to call it. I wouldn't say garbage, but mid games. But overall, by today's standards, it is pretty good, and if you want to go back and play it, I think you'll have a fun time with it. But it is really hardcore, and you're gonna have to watch a lot of YouTube guides. BO4 top of good, that's where I'd put it. It's kind of a weird one because it has Blackout included, and you know, the next game, which has Warzone, it has it separately, so we'll figure out how to rank that. But yeah, top of good, that's where I'm gonna put it. Modern Warfare 2019, I'm gonna put this as our first game in the meh category. I know a lot of people are probably gonna hate on me for that. This game was a huge step up in terms of graphical quality, innovation, the engine, the animations, just making Call of Duty feel like it's state of the art again. Like, it is the top tier, maybe not even again, maybe just for the first time, other than, well, I guess since COD 4. This is the first, like, Call of Duty where, like, they actually were beating Battlefield in terms of graphics and animation and attention to detail. And that's where the praise ends, because the actual gameplay design of this game was a disaster. But I'm going to wait. I need to get in the campaign first. Campaign, I thought the campaign was pretty good. It was sort of like a reboot, had familiar characters, but it was a new story and it was a different universe. I definitely liked it. Not anything crazy going on. It's not one of my favorites of all time, but it's definitely up there. It's a pretty solid campaign. I liked how they got a lot more adult with some of the themes and missions and objectives in this game. It was pretty cool to see, and that mission where you're playing as like a little kid was wild. I remember when you shot the pistol or whatever. I think it was like a deagle. You shot a deagle as a little kid, and like, bro just like went flying. Like, the recoil was terrible. But yeah, overall the campaign was pretty good. Multiplayer is, like I said, this is where it's controversial, because in my opinion, this game just catered to the absolute lowest tier of players imaginable. This game rewarded you for camping, playing slow. The devs even said they made the maps with safe spaces, because this game had some of the worst maps of all time. Piccadilly, don't ever show me that map again, please. Or the bridge map, like, ugh. I like search and destroy in this game. That's about it. The respawn modes were a disaster. Originally, this game wasn't even going to have a mini map. You were going to have to look at the compass. And then they added the mini map in, but there were no red dots on the mini map when you were firing. So there's that classic meme of that guy walking down the street. He looked left and right. As soon as he walked, he got lit up from like 14 windows and then respawned into a claymore that was behind a door. Like, that is the absolute perfect example of Modern Warfare 2019 multiplayer. The movement was good, the gunplay was good, but the design, the core design was terrible. And this is where Infinity Ward just became like the worst studio in my opinion, because their next game, we'll get to that in a minute. I respect a lot of what this game does, but I did not enjoy it a lot. I did like Ground War though. Ground War, they went for like a Battlefield style mode. I thought that was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. But ultimately, you know, again, it just goes back to this game trying to move away from the arcadey Call of Duty feel. And then Spec Ops, we're not even going to talk about that, because freaking who played Spec Ops in Modern Warfare 2019? It was a cool idea, I guess. Like, they went for a bigger scale, but I didn't play that. So yeah, meh, that's where it belongs for me. It is what it is. I know a lot of people put this in peak. I feel like if you put in peak, it's probably the first Call of Duty you played since the original Modern Warfare. So, you know, it is what it is. I guess we'll go ahead and rank Warzone, since Warzone was added with MW 2019. I'm also going to put this in meh. In my opinion, Warzone, just like Modern Warfare 2019 is not what COD multiplayer should be, Warzone is not what a Battle Royale should be. Battle Royale, in my opinion, is you spawn in, you start with nothing, you build up, you have to kill other players to get better gear to progress, and then by the end of the match, once you've gotten a lot of kills, once you've looted a lot, you've got everything you need, and you have a really good chance of winning. And people who make it to the end somehow without nearly as much, and they haven't killed as many people, they're gonna probably lose. But in Warzone, you loot up for 2 seconds, and then you get your loadout, and there's literally no incentive to kill any players for the rest of the match unless you just want to get kills. It is a disadvantage to go and kill enemies in Warzone in like the mid to late game if you actually want to win. I just didn't like the loadout system for this game. I felt like the map, everybody glazes Verdansk, but Verdansk is so uninspired compared to Blackout's map. The buyback system, bringing your teammates back a million times over just with a small amount of cash, was annoying. It felt like there were no consequences to your actions. It didn't feel like a Battle Royale. This felt like a very watered down arcadey version of a Battle Royale, which a lot of people love. It's just not for me, and they've got like 4 or 5 iterations of Warzone, but to me, they're all kind of the same. I'm not really a fan of any of them. I didn't even like Warzone a lot when it came out in the peak golden days, you know, the COVID days or whatever. I enjoyed it with friends because of course I did, because it's always fun playing with the boys, but it was nowhere near Blackout in my opinion. Also, the damage Warzone has done to the Call of Duty franchise almost makes me want to put it in trash. This mode has ruined COD multiplayer and COD Zombies. So for that alone, I almost want to put it in trash, but we're just going to go ahead and move on. Next up, we have Cold War. Cold War, where is Cold War going to go? I'm going to put Cold War, you know what, hot take, I'm putting Cold War above Modern Warfare 3. I'm putting Cold War here because it has zombies, let's be real. We'll just go ahead and go down the list, of course. Campaign, I thought that the campaign for Cold War was really surprising. It was the first campaign done by Raven, and they knocked it out of the park. It was a short campaign, but it was a really good campaign. Instead of going the Modern Warfare approach where they rebooted, they decided to go back and make it a follow-up to BO1, but a prequel to BO2. I love this game's campaign. It was very similar to BO1, except you had some of the different choices like in BO2, and the alternate ending of this game is so dang good. I really loved that ending, and overall I thought the campaign was solid, and they had like lock picking and some side missions and some cool mechanics where you could like hold people hostage. This was a really fun campaign. It was also the first one on the PS5 generation, and I remember the first time I loaded it into the PS5, I was blown away by the graphics, especially on that mission where you're with Woods in the snowy mountain. That looked insane. But yeah, Cold War campaign, really surprising. One of my favorites, actually. I just wish it was longer. And then the multiplayer, I gotta be honest, a lot of people say they absolutely love this game's multiplayer. It was more arcadey than Modern Warfare 2019. This was the last, like, quote-unquote, somewhat traditional COD multiplayer. I just didn't play it a whole lot, and when I did play it, I felt like the SBMM in this game was more debilitating than any Call of Duty I've ever played. Maybe I just sucked at it, I don't know. I was not doing very good on this game's multiplayer for whatever reason, and overall I just didn't play it a whole lot, but I know a lot of people absolutely love it, and I think for the most part it's solid. As far as zombies is concerned, this is the first zombies of the new modern era. Everybody hates the new modern era of zombies. And I think Cold War was refreshing at its time. It went back to a more casual kind of approach, and I do think it was fun. And I did play Cold War a lot. Like, I got Dark Ether. It was fun at the time, but overall, I think this game's zombies mode really dropped the ball in terms of personality, creativity. The maps were just very boring. In general, the vibe of the game, it had more of a multiplayer kind of vibe to it. Like, it did not feel as cinematic. It didn't feel like zombies. There's nothing about this game that's bad, but I don't think there's anything about this game that's great. So for me, it's like the most mid-zombies experience of all time. Also, we only had 4 maps total, which was really sad coming off of BO4 that had 8. And then on top of that, Outbreak was added. And this is where Treyarch was starting to let the community know that they were wanting to move away from round-based. And, well, eventually would not work out for them. Cold War Zombies, okay. Dead Ops Arcade 3 was in this game. I almost beat Dead Ops Arcade 3. It was great as always. You can't go wrong with Dead Ops. But overall, Cold War is kind of just, it's good, but it's not great. And then Vanguard. Now, a lot of people expect me to put this in trash. I'm going to go ahead and hit you with a little surprise. And we're going to not put it in trash. I'm going to put it in meh. I think for me personally, this and MW 2019 are tied. This game has a better multiplayer. MW 2019 has a better campaign though. And also, I respect MW 2019 more than Vanguard. But if we're talking about fun factor, Vanguard was more fun to me. But first, campaign. This game's campaign was trash. I gotta be honest. This is one of my least favorite campaigns in Call of Duty history. It was down there with BO3. Almost every mission in this game was a flashback, so the storytelling, like, progression was just not good. It was yet another World War II game where it just didn't hit like World at War. Yeah, overall, I don't really have a whole lot to say about the game's campaign. It was just super forgettable, super meh. The missions themselves, I think that there was potential for it to be better than COD World War II's campaign, but ultimately the progression of the story and the story itself was just, not for me. Multiplayer though, like I said, I actually preferred this game's multiplayer over MW 2019, and that is because I thought that it was way more fast paced. You know, you could run a perk to get red dots on the map. I thought the maps were better and there were more maps. Also, you could run I forgot what it was called, but you could like crank the player count up in 6v6. To like way more than that on 6v6 maps, which at the time it was a lot of fun. Now we're kind of over the brain rot, I feel, but at the time it was really fun. And yeah, I had fun with Vanguard's multiplayer, I'll be honest. It wasn't amazing or anything, it wasn't even great, but I thought that it was, for me, more fun than Cold War and Modern Warfare 2019. But it's not a high bar for me. And then zombies, like, it's Vanguard zombies, bro. Like, it's trash. Like, what do you want me to say? It's the only video game in existence to ever remaster a map that was already in the game. Like, I'm just gonna leave it there. How do you even do that? That is incredible. Absolute garbage. Speaking of absolute garbage, we're gonna go ahead and put that in trash. This is the worst Call of Duty of all time, in my opinion. First off, the campaign was It was all right. It was as good as MW 2019, but it wasn't terrible either. I felt like they tried to retell some of the same story moments from like the OG MW2, but they did not do it nearly as good. I did not like Soap in this version of the game nearly as much, but I will say Ghost was actually, in my opinion, done better in the new games than the old games, but Soap was not. And then Shepard also wasn't either. Multiplayer. This is the worst multiplayer in Call of Duty history. Like, they somehow took Modern Warfare 2019, even though that game was polarizing. Modern Warfare 2 somehow managed to get both sides to agree that it was trash. They did not do anything to please anyone, and I don't even know how that happened. There were certain changes they made to make it a little bit less camper friendly, but ultimately it was still pretty dang camper friendly. The movement was worse because they got rid of slide canceling. They added this system where you get your perks in over time instead of at the beginning of the game, which was the most stupid thing ever. The maps were yet again trash. I mean, who can forget the freaking map on the interstate with like 700 vehicles where you start the match by throwing a grenade and you just cause your game to crash? You know, who could forget that masterpiece? Even Ground War was done worse in this game than Modern Warfare 2019 somehow. Warzone was done worse. Warzone 2 was done worse. And this comes from somebody who doesn't like the loadout system. The way they got rid of loadouts in Warzone 2 was trash. They just completely misunderstood what people liked about Blackout and what they didn't like about the loadouts. You can't just get rid of the loadouts, which they didn't get rid of entirely. They made it where you had to like kill some AI enemies to get your loadout or whatever, which was weird. And what ended up happening is like the top 3 teams in the match were the only ones with loadouts for like the majority of the match. That's what happened almost every match in Warzone 2 at the beginning, because they would just squad up in a helicopter and go straight for the black site or whatever. I know I'm talking about Warzone right now, but Modern Warfare 2, Warzone 2, same thing. So that was trash, but also it's like, it's not just that people like me who love Blackout don't want loadouts. You also have to add in picking up the attachments, because that was part of the fun of Blackout or another BR game, is like you get the weapon, but then also you got to get all the attachments and build it up. Whereas in Warzone 2, you know, you're just left with these preset weapons that were garbage sometimes. You find one with good attachments and then, oh no, it's got a thermal scope on it. Or you find one with good attachments, but oh no, it's got a 20 round mag and it's an LMG. That's not what we wanted. They should have just left the loadouts in as they were to appeal to the Warzone fan base, but instead they tried to appeal to everyone and they made no one happy. That's literally how you could describe Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2. It's what the Helldivers website says when you go into it for the first time, the Arrowhead website. A game for everyone is a game for no one. That's Modern Warfare 2's freaking identity. And then, what was the third mode in this game? I know they had raids, like Destiny raids. What the heck was up with that? Putting raids in Call of Duty? I don't even think they were worth doing at all, but anyways, let's move on. Modern Warfare 3. Okay, Modern Warfare 3. For me, it's gonna go right... Oh, this is tough. I think realistically speaking, it needs to go here. So this game was originally just gonna be a DLC for Modern Warfare 2. It definitely shows because it's the exact same game. However, this game fixed all the issues with Modern Warfare 2. Because of that, that makes this game even worse because Modern Warfare 3 exists. First off, with the campaign, I will say the campaign was trash. Like, the campaign was super short. It had these open world Warzone missions that were just absolutely tedious to get through, and the ending was tragic. Yeah, campaign, I don't have much to say on that. Not very good at all. Definitely the weakest part of this game. Multiplayer, though, I actually think this is the best new era multiplayer we've gotten so far. However, hot take, I don't know, but I think BO7 actually will probably overthrow it. I liked BO7's multiplayer gameplay, and they just announced that the open matchmaking is going to be the default, and they're not going to have disbanding lobbies. I don't know. I already like the game even with SBMM, so I think without all that on launch and the fact they've already said they're going to add like a ton of content, I actually think BO7 multiplayer will probably end up being the best one of the new era. But right now, MW3 is the best one of the new era, and it's just a lot of fun. It was nice having carry forward. There was so much in the game, maybe too much for some people, but I thought it was cool. I liked having all that content. The DLC season, like the post-launch support, the progression, which that was another thing I forgot to mention with MW 2019 and MW2 and Infinity Ward in general these days. They don't give a crap about progression. MW 2019 did not even have prestiges. It had that seasonal system. MW2's system wasn't really much better, but they don't give a crap about progression because they cater to people who play for 1 hour a week. Modern Warfare 3, though, they knocked out of the park with all the post-launch support and all the content, and they did really good. Sledgehammer did a really good job with the multiplayer in this game. Zombies, I understand that most people absolutely hate the zombies in this game because it's not traditional zombies, but I actually think that for what it was decent enough. It was good enough. I think it was better than Vanguard. Even though Vanguard had a couple round-based maps, I appreciate that Modern Warfare Zombies, they just had a vision, they had an idea, even if you disagreed with it, which I definitely did. It wasn't my preferred style of zombies, but they went all in on it, and I respect that. And I think in general, the quality of MWZ is more consistent and good than Vanguard, because Vanguard, they had to course correct, and what they originally wanted to do was just terrible. So I understand a lot of people hate MWZ, especially because it's like Warzone basically, but I actually thought it was interesting. It was interesting. Oh, I forgot DMZ was in Modern Warfare 2. Yeah, I didn't play that crap. That was like Tarkov Walmart brand, I gotta be honest. I know some people liked it, more power to you, but just play Tarkov if you have a PC. But yeah, MWZ, I thought it was good for what it was, but it's not my preferred kind of zombies experience. However, I would not be opposed to seeing them maybe one day trying something like that again. Maybe not tied to Warzone, but like that sort of idea of a mode. Maybe try it again one day and go even further with it and see what you can do with it. I'm not opposed to that entirely, but I don't want them to do that instead of round base. So I don't know, maybe I don't want that, but you know, I don't hate MWZ. It's definitely one of the worst if we're talking about all of zombies in general for me, but I respect that they just tried something different and went in with their vision. I mean, it was a Modern Warfare game. Treyarch was pretty much told at last minute to go do something for it, so I think they did all right. And the ending Easter egg and like boss fight, from what I've seen, is really, really cool. So, but yeah, overall MW3, good Call of Duty game. Definitely way better than MW2. Kind of insane that there's this big of a jump between these two games. It really just comes down to those fixes that they made multiplayer for the most part, because MW2 has a better campaign, but the multiplayer, it just needed those fixes to be good. And of course I do prefer zombies over, you know, DMZ or whatever. But anyways, last Call of Duty up on the block, Black Ops 6. I'm gonna put Black Ops 6 right above Cold War. Now, some of these could be changed, I'll be honest. On certain days, I might feel more strongly towards one over the other. But for me, I think this game deserves to be a step up over Cold War, because honestly, that's what it is, really. It's just Cold War again, but a little bit better. Campaign, I can't speak on the campaign. I haven't finished it. Maybe one day I'll go back and finish it, but I did hear that it's not as good as Cold War, so that is kind of depressing. And from what I did play, I can attest to that. It didn't hook me as much as Cold War. The multiplayer is definitely tremendously hated on, but I think that's for two reasons. One, I think it's because the crossovers and the bundles and everything have gotten, they just went like crazy with BO6, like getting cartoon characters in there. So that made a lot of people not like it. I think another reason a lot of people didn't like it is because it's the newest Call of Duty, and you know, people for the most part are not going to like the newest Call of Duty as much. That's just pretty much how it always is. Like even MW3, which people liked it more during its life cycle for sure, but even then people were still not as keen to praise it as they are now, because that's just the COD cycle, right? Nobody loves the current thing. I can't wait when the COD players start getting tired of Battlefield 6 and complaining about that, because it's just in their DNA. I already know they're going to do that BO7, but I would say that overall, to me, it's more fun than Cold War multiplayer. I think it's a good enough Call of Duty multiplayer, but it's another Call of Duty multiplayer. Like, there's not anything crazy about it, really. And the SBMM is obviously pretty out of control in this game and the new COD multiplayers. And then as far as zombies is concerned, zombies is disappointing. And I'll say disappointing because I think the launch was incredible. I think Terminus was a pretty solid map, a much needed bridge between old zombies and new zombies that we wanted from Cold War. It was a nice little, not return to form, but like I said, nice bridge of the old and the new. Liberty Falls, having that second map on launch was fun. It wasn't a great map or anything, but it was a fun map to grind on, and I think Treyarch said it's the most played zombies map of all time, which is because of the camo grind, but still something. I think Citadel was a fantastic DLC 1. The boss fights, they were cooking. Like, they were cooking with the boss fights in BO6. They released Citadel pretty quick, and then they announced the Tomb, and the Tomb was coming out pretty quick. It seemed like we were going to get a DLC map every single season, and then the Tomb hit, and the Tomb was the most filler zombies map in existence. After the Tomb, the community sentiment kind of went down a good bit, and there was also a huge gap between the Tomb and Shattered Veil. And Shattered Veil was a good map, I think some people went a little too far with glazing it when it came out because of the tomb. Like some people were saying it's like top 5 map or felt like old zombies again entirely. I wouldn't go that far. But it was one of the better maps of BO6 and was definitely a step up from the tomb. And then we had a gigantic wait from Shattered Veil to the Reckoning. I think that was because Treyarch was pretty much pulled off of BO6 and needed to focus on BO7. They don't say that's the case, but we all know it's true because I think anyone with a brain could tell you that their DLC model did not make sense because they released the first 2 maps super fast. Then the third map had a little bit of a gap, but not too much. And then the 4th map had a giant gap. So they were definitely going to do 5 DLC maps. I think that was rumored originally too, but obviously that did not happen. And the Reckoning, in my opinion, I have not done the Easter egg yet. I've done the Easter egg on all the other maps. Again, the boss fights are great for every single map, except for the tomb. I mean, it's a fine boss fight, but you're fighting a mirror. Like, it's not very exciting. The Reckoning, from the little bit I played, I just don't really like the map design at all. I like that we have new bosses. That was one big issue with BO6 is the reuse of modern era bosses. Oh my god, and it seems like that's still gonna be a thing in BO7. They gotta stop with that. We gotta put a permanent ban on Manglers, Doppelgas, Abominations, Amalgams, like all of them. They gotta go for good. But yeah, the Reckoning I was not really a big fan of, but I still need to do the Easter egg for it at some point. Maybe that'll elevate my ranking of it or it'll make it go down. We'll find out. But yeah, overall, BO6, like I said, it's a step up from Cold War. BO7 looks like it'll be a step up from BO6, but BO7 does feel a little bit more unique compared to BO6 and Cold War. Might be a pretty good step up, but we'll find out soon, I guess. But yeah, those are all the Call of Duty games I played. COD Mobile I played a little bit, but not enough to really rank. I'm just gonna put in didn't play, and then I'm just gonna put all these other ones in didn't play because I didn't play them. And then we have zombies here, but that's not really fair. I'm not gonna rank zombies as its own thing. But yeah, that is my Call of Duty tier list. I'm curious to know your thoughts on my list. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you think I'm on point? I don't know. Let me know what your list is in the comments down below. I want to do a lot more of these ranking style videos, and I hope you guys want to see a lot more of them. I think they're a lot of fun. I definitely have a lot that I want to say. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if you're looking forward to Black Ops 7 or not, if you're just going to be on Battlefield 6. I'm going to be playing both. I think both will be fun, but thank you all for watching. I will see you guys in the next video.